The Messerschmitt ME-262 was the world's first operational jet fighter aircraft. It was faster and more heavily armed than any Allied fighter, including the British jet-powered Gloucester Meteor. Although the ME-262 was not a problem for an experienced pilot to master, but like any other aircraft, it had its own characteristics, which caused difficulties in training beginners who had limited flight time even on piston aircraft. Soon it was obvious that the training would go much easier when using a two-seat aircraft, and the Messerschmitt developed such a variant, the Me-262B-1a. The Me-262B-1 differed from a conventional aircraft by installing a second pilot seat in place of the rear main tank, which required pylons for two 300-liter tanks to be mounted on the aircraft. The cannon armament was retained. In total, approximately 15 such aircraft were delivered. Some were converted into a two-seat night interceptor, which received the designation Me-262B-1U1. The possibility of using the Me-262 as a night interceptor was demonstrated in a series of tests carried out at Rechlin in October of 1944. After successful tests, it was decided to convert the Me-262B-1 into a temporary night fighter. The B-1U1 was equipped with an FUG-218 Neptune radar and was armed with two Mk-108 cannons. Operationally, the radar's antenna proved to be a source of drag, but the B-1U1 could still outrun the Royal Air Force night fighters. It is important to note that even before the appearance of the new night fighter jet, an experimental unit of night fighters was formed on the basis of the Me-262 under the command of Major Gerhard Stamp. The unit used wild boar tactics with conventional Me-262A1 fighters. Wilde Sau, or wild boar, was a Luftwaffe tactic used from 1943 to 1944, by which British night bombers were engaged by single-seat day fighters. The fighters had to engage the British bombers freely, as they were illuminated by searchlight batteries, while avoiding their own anti-aircraft fire. After some initial successes, rising losses and deteriorating weather conditions led to the abandonment of this tactic. Sources state that the very first aerial victory flying an Me-262 was claimed either on the night of the 2nd of January or on the 5th of January 1945. During February and March of the same year, Sonderkommando, or Special Unit Stamp, the Me-262 night fighter unit, received the first two Me-262B-1U1, which were used to cover Berlin. The unit was tasked with intercepting Mosquito bomber aircraft of the Royal Air Force in the Berlin area. The majority of the Me-262s were not fitted with radar and used the aid of ground control and the searchlight defenses, partially a Wilde Sau tactic for night combat. The most successful pilot of the unit was Kurt Welter. He claimed a total of 63 aerial victories in 93 combat missions. He recorded 56 victories at night, including 33 Mosquitoes, and scored more aerial victories from a jet aircraft than anyone else in World War II and possibly in aviation history. But this score is a matter of controversy. Only 3 of the Mosquito kills coinciding with Royal Air Force records. Research of the Royal Air Force losses suggests Walter overclaimed Mosquito victories considerably. Anyway, in April of 1945, the unit was redesignated as the 10th Squadron of the Night Fighting Group 11. It remained the only night fighter unit armed with the Me-262, receiving approximately 10 Me-262B-1 But the B-1U-1 was only a conversion of a training vehicle. Its successes led to the development of the Me-262B-2a, a real night fighter, which was expected to enter service from the middle of 1945. Structurally, the aircraft was distinguished by the insertion of 2 fuselage sections before and after a 2-seat cockpit, which increased the overall length by 1.2 meters. This made it possible to place 900-liter and 600-liter rear tanks in the fuselage. A towed tank increased a total fuel capacity to 4,400 liters, allowing the Me-262B-2 to patrol for quite some time. The fuel from this tank was consumed first, after which the tank was dumped. The first Me-262B-2 received a locator like the B-1U-1, but in the end they decided to stop at the FUG-240 Berlin airborne interception radar system. It was the first German radar to be based on the cavity magnetron, which eliminated the need for the large multiple dipole-based antenna arrays seen on earlier radars, thereby greatly increasing the performance of the night fighters. The increase in air resistance with this locator was minimal, if any. Introduced in April of 1945, only about 25 new radar units saw service. By the time of the complete collapse of the Third Reich, the Me-262B-2 with the Berlin locator was at the final stage of assembly. It was supposed to retain the standard armament of 4 30mm Mk108 cannons. In addition, it was planned to install 2 such cannons at an angle to the horizon in the Schrägmusik type. This made it possible to hit enemy bombers from below in their most vulnerable part, engines and bomb bays. Only one prototype was built before the war ended, which was not used in combat.